Welcome back to today's Photo Minute. My name is Brian Osborne of the Photo Classroom, and it's great to be back with you today for part 2 of our two-part series on ISO. How important it is what we started to talk about yesterday and how it works a little bit. And I hope you're able to see yesterday's video and post about how we actually needed a higher ISO. Even though we were out in the bright sun when I was doing the pictures of the dogwood flowers, we needed a higher ISO in order to get the right shutter speed and aperture combination to accomplish what I was trying to capture in those images. And so that exercise, I hope you get a chance to do something like that yourself, because it really points out two things. One is that the ISO is the only way for you to get the right aperture and shutter speed sometimes under certain lighting conditions. You and I can't change the amount of light, but we can change the responsiveness of the camera by raising and being willing to raise our ISO. It was also a great example that just when you change your ISO, you are not changing the actual brightness of the picture. And that is certainly true in aperture priority mode, shutter priority mode, and even program mode. But a lot of people have a different understanding of that, maybe coming from working in manual mode. And so they think that when they raise the ISO, they're going to get a brighter end result. But the exposure doesn't change, and the samples that I posted online showed that as well. For today, I wanted to talk about what happens when you use a higher ISO, because while ISO is incredibly useful, as you go up on the ISO, you do gain something that we call noise, and another word for noise would be graininess in your images. Now, there's a lot of talk online about graininess in your pictures, and there are people that don't even want to use high ISOs because they don't want that extra graininess in their pictures. The reality, though, is, let's say if you were photographing a indoor basketball game, you would need a fast shutter speed. There probably wouldn't be very much light. And if you weren't willing to raise your ISO because you were worried about the noise, you'd probably end up getting a blurry subject because you didn't get a fast enough shutter speed to stop the actual action. And so my understanding of ISO is that I need to be willing to go up to, in essence, whatever ISO I need, however high that is, in order to accomplish the right aperture and shutter speed that I'm hoping to get for the actual image that I'm trying to create. But with that comes our need on our part to understand just how capable our camera is, how high of an ISO can our camera go up to, as well as at what point are the noise levels so high, the graininess is so bad in the pictures that you may not be willing to go up to those higher tiers of ISOs. And so the way to determine that is for you and I to actually do some test shots with our own particular camera. We know that really the biggest thing that improves in technology and photography is that every new generation of cameras has a better, higher ISO and less noise at that higher ISO. And so one of the benefits you may have seen if you had an older DSLR and then you went to a newer camera is the fact that you probably got better pictures in low light situations because of this better high ISO performance. I'm using a Nikon D7200, and you may have even seen the picture that I posted earlier today. It was a picture of a deer in the backyard, and in order to get the right aperture and shutter speed, I ended up using a ISO of 12,800, which is pretty high. But when you look at that image and some other ones that I've created, on my camera, I don't think the graininess is too bad at that ISO, and I'm willing to allow the camera to go up to that ISO or to take the camera up to that ISO if that's what's needed in order to get the picture. What would be helpful for all of us, every single person, regardless of your, if you're starting out photography or whether you've been doing this for a while, is you really need to know what you think the best capabilities are of your camera when it comes to the high ISO range. And so the assignment that I have for us today is to set up a little, I would do it in a low light situation, so you could do it on a desk or on a table inside your house. Something that has some black in the background is helpful because you tend to see noise in the dark areas of the scene. But I would set it up, I'd do it on a tripod so that every picture, sequential picture that you take is the same. And I would do probably aperture priority, probably use a lower aperture such as, let's say, 5.6. And start at whatever ISO you consider to be a little bit higher in your camera. So let's say you start the first picture at 800 ISO. And then the next picture I'd take would be identical in all ways, but I'd raise the ISO up to 1600, and then I take another picture at 3200, 6400, 12,800 if your camera has it, 25,600 if your camera has it. And then most of your cameras at some point on the high numerical value will also have a high 1 and a high 2. And those computer manipulated ISO segments or numbers, those might be very, very grainy, but the reason for the exercise is for you to know what your camera can do and at what point the ISO is so noisy that you may not want to use it. And so I would encourage all of us to do this exercise, to just keep taking pictures at sequentially higher ISOs, and then to be able to look at those on your computer screen and you determine at what high ISO you think the picture is so noisy that it would be unacceptable. And this is going to be very helpful because we're going to do another segment on auto ISO, and where we're going to actually allow the camera to control it. But one of those things that we're going to need to define for the camera is how high of an ISO that we're willing for auto ISO to work up to. And so knowing the capabilities of your particular camera in low light situations, when the ISO is going to need to go up or you're going to want to take it up higher, is just a very, very helpful thing. And I think it'd be a great practice exercise for us as well. Hey, I hope you have a good rest of the day. Join me tomorrow for our Shoot and Share weekend edition of today's Photo Minute. And I've got some neat things for us to maybe be shooting tomorrow to get some more practice in. And it'd be great to see some of your results as well online at our Facebook page. And also you can follow us at our YouTube channel as well. Thank you again. This is today's Photo Minute. I'm Brian Osborne of the Photo Classroom.